Welcome to another edition of Turn 6 Garage, and today, another car, one of the most valuable members of the fleet, a 2012 Fiat 500C TwinAir, manual, 2 cylinders of honest reasonableness, 2 cylinders of amazing fun as well. A car that I knew existed, and I've always wanted a TwinAir, and we got one. Well, it was meant for the Carshare fleet, but it's so good, it's so useful that I keep driving it every day. My dad and I love this thing, drive it every single day. It goes places that most other cars can't go, park it anywhere, and it's amazing fun to drive. It's one of the best jack-of-all-trades cars out there, and it's a convertible on a day like that. It's fantastic. So, what possessed me to go and fish one of these out? Well, it all started when I first read about this car back in 2011 when Richard Porter, who is the script editor of Top Gear, bought one for his wife. I thought, that's an interesting choice. Why a TwinAir? Well, TwinAir was great fun to drive, great engine, economical, and it beat the congestion charge in London. So, it was a win-win. And this car, now I've driven it, is just amazing as a car, amazing fun in every way. It's small, it's actually a lot roomier than you think, especially someone of my size can get into this thing comfortably, whereas much bigger cars I feel like I'm cramped in and squished together. Whereas this, plenty of headroom, plenty of legroom, plenty of armroom, even front, rear, well I don't fit, but most other people do. It can be a 4-seater if you want it to be. And this one turned up at Gray's, usual fun place I go look for cars, and we had a go at it and we won. So this specific car is a 2012, 2013 model year 500C TwinAir manual with all the options. Leather seats, premium sound system, alloy wheels, and of course the wonderful convertible roof. So the 6-foot size 14 me fits in this car. Headroom, armroom. Driving position is actually reasonably good. Pedals are well placed, great for heel and toe movements. Love this body coloured trim match on the dashboard. I think it's fantastic the 500 has this. Loved it ever since it came out. Some of the things I'm not so happy with is the blue and me system. It's just a complete faff. The aerial's a bit airy-fairy depending on the day. And this bit of plastic is, well, really shiny. In Australia in 2013, when this was sold new, $31,000. A lot of money for this thing. TwinAir, C, lounge. I mean, it should have been low 20s at best. That's probably where it was meant to be priced. And that's why no one really bought these things, because they were just too expensive. The base pops people bought in the dozen. When Fiats became quite popular in 2013, 2014 with all the advertising they did. But the TwinAir was sort of the neglected one. Had Fiat Chrysler advertised it properly back then, they would have sold a whole heap more. It is a very clever, multi-talented engine, and it uses so little fuel. Okay, it's not a whole lot more fuel efficient than a 1.2, but still. TwinAir, 2 cylinders, turbocharged, great fun to drive. And it's 3 seconds from 0 to 100 faster than the 1.2. Kind of does sound a bit like a lawnmower. 900 cc's, oh, 898 cc's of a turbo. And the air conditioning actually works really well, although it does rob some performance out of this car with the aircon on. And sounds a bit like a Victor lawnmower when it's idling, which is good fun. And no one ever would think it's what it is. Sound of the little lawnmower engine is actually really endearing, especially when you get used to it. Driving the C with this TwinAir engine, it's such great fun to drive, it's such great fun to hurl it around. Now, it is a little bouncy. The suspension, even though we have put new SAC shock absorbers on it, it does still bounce a bit. But when you get to a corner or a little roundabout like this, it's such good fun. It's flat. It's actually really, really nice to turn in. There's no
no weight over the front wheels. Gearbox is great fun to use. It's not notchy, it's just precise, and handling, just chuck it into any corner. Even at low speeds, I'm only doing 50 k's an hour, and it's making me laugh and smile to drive. It is dynamic, and you don't have to go fast to enjoy it. It's one of those cars you can enjoy driving at the speed limit. And the way it drives, especially with this little engine, it's got a 5-speed box, but it's very different to other 5 speeds. The way in which I drive this car, it's sort of like a 6-speed box, only that the first and second in a 6-speed is an amalgamation in gear 1, second is third, third is fourth, fourth is fifth, fifth is sixth. That's the sort of way I see it. 1 and 2 are together, and then it's the gear below you'd normally think it would be in a 6-speed. It's a bit unusual at first, so if you've driven a few like I have, you get used to it. But that's what makes it special. It has its own driving style, it has its own character. Something that I find missing in a lot of cars now. It just seems like they're all the same, more or less, whereas this has something to it. This has charm. This has something special about it. Everything on this car makes me smile. Well, not everything. That Blue and Me system annoys me quite a lot. It was a bit of a faff. And I knew it was a faff because I've read so many old car magazines with cars they ran with Blue and Me. Microsoft system that doesn't work. I wish it had a standard Bluetooth system. But the list of things I wish this thing had isn't especially long. So in the 6 months, what's this car needed? Well, when we first got it, there were a few things that needed doing. It did need some suspension work, needed front control arms and shocks on it too, because the standard shocks are a bit ordinary to say the least. And ride quality has improved quite a lot with the Sax. It does bounce, but nowhere near as much. It needed a whole bunch of sensors, a whole bunch of things, coils, plugs, usual Euro things, a lot of sensor, boost pressure sensor needed doing. It does need one thing, and it needs an expansion tank. These cars, these things like using up, they use coolant because the tanks leak a lot. That's one thing that seems to be with Fiat products. Hoses and anything to do with the cooling system, they tend to be common issues with these cars. It does need a couple of things. It does need an engine mount and an expansion tank. That's about all it needs for now. It did also need an oil cooler. Now that was a bit of a faff, because the oil cooler job is a 6-hour job for what's effectively a $50 part that goes wrong. It's a cheap oil cooler, and they like going wrong. Common issue with these things, which is why they have oil leaks. But yeah, oil cooler's a thing with these cars that we had to do on it, because it was being set up to be driven lots of Ks as a hire car. And then when we drove it, we kind of fell in love with it, and to say the least, my dad and I love this thing to pieces. It didn't need a whole lot compared to some of the other bombs that I own, but the C has been such a great little car. It uses half the fuel of my 325. Yep. Uses half the fuel of pretty much anything else we've got. So, and you'll see some of the others in the fleet as well. But this one has been the most valuable one. It's the one that's done everything, and is one of the best daily drivers I can say you can get if you want a cheap, economical, fun little car. Any parking spot, you just shove this thing in. Drive it in, reverse it in, whatever. One of the endearing qualities of this car. It's why you can drive it anywhere in the city or anywhere in Chapel Street, and you can squeeze this thing into spots other cars could never dream of going into. Now, I will go further into this car in subsequent videos about what to look for with this engine, what to do and what not to do. There is another TwinAir that does exist in the fleet. Well, not mine, Nick's fleet, that something has happened with that you shouldn't do, that I will explain further on. And what to look for when you're buying one of these, and also, crucially, what to pay for them. Now, This one is great because it is a manual. You can also get the TwinAir in the 500 with a dual logic. Not really my thing, but you can. And the little C is just a joy. It's a great little car. Ever since I got the Micra, I've been a lot more accommodating when it comes to little cars. I wasn't so much into them before that, and now I've really fallen in love with them. So one thing I can say with the little C is if you want to downsize into something like this, then you should consider it, because it is fundamentally everything you expect from a car, all the mod cons, yet you can do everything with it. Okay, the boot's a little bit small, and the rear seats are for anyone that's, well, 5 foot something and under, not someone like my size, but it's still usable. It still can be practically daily driven, which, again, for a car of this size, is pretty special. The 500, it's been around for 16 years, but when you drive one and own one, you can understand why they're so popular. You can understand why they're so good. And that's what I would say about this car. If you do think about a Fiat 500 on your shopping list, for your next car, especially with the manual gearbox, drive it, experience it. Will be to some people's tastes, might not be to everyone's taste, but it's a car you really should experience at least once in your life. So, that's where I'm going to leave it for now. If you like what I do, what Nick and I do together, remember to like and subscribe.